Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for Black Panther, a movie that I actually very much enjoyed back in the day when I saw it, and even to this day, still very much a big fan of this movie. And outside of the CGI, I think, and also technically the war rhinos, I think this movie is actually really good. And I know people are very upset about the war rhinos, but I think that they just a silly thing. Anyway, let's just get into the spoiler talk, shall we? So starting off, this movie basically starts off with the backstory about vibranium. Basically, a gigantic meteor of vibranium crash landed on Earth in Africa, and 5 tribes came together and basically used it to build Wakanda. And also they found heart-shaped herbs, and if you crush that into a liquid and you drink it, you become, well, you have the powers of the Black Panther, basically, just without the suit. You know, you don't just grow claws or anything. It's just you got super strength and super healing. But in 1992, Killmonger's dad, whose name I do not know, he gets killed by King T'Chaka because of the fact that he sold out Wakanda to Claw, and also because of the fact that he wanted to attack the king. That is why he gets killed, by the way. But he was gonna be taken prisoner, but that didn't happen because of the fact that he kind of threw a gun on the king. Which, by the way, the fact that fact we learn later on, but I'll just immediately tell you guys that. And then young Killmonger found his dad's dead body, and I guess, I don't know, swore revenge or something like that. I have no idea what happened after that. Meanwhile, during present day, we have Black Panther, who rescues Nakia, apparently an ex-lover, because of the fact that the king is dead. She was on an undercover mission where basically you got these bad guys who were smuggling women. Simple as that. But because of the fact that the king's dead, she kind of needs to come home immediately. So she goes home, and now it's T'Challa's turn to become king, baby. Also, we're a week after Civil War. So now T'Challa has to become king. So while they make the preparations, let's see what's happening in London. And we are at a museum, and we see a guy who we will later learn is Killmonger. And he goes to this museum and asks the lady a bunch of questions about things. And she gives answers, except for the fact that about one thing she was right, but also wrong. Because while that was stolen the way that she said it, that originated in Wakanda. Because the tip is made out of vibranium. So Claw breaks into the museum and steals it and kills a couple of people, and Killmonger now works with Claw. My guess is in order to get closer to Wakanda. Meanwhile, back in Wakanda, T'Challa now has to fight in order to become king, and also has to take this, I don't know, I wanted to call it an antidote, but I don't really know if you call it an antidote. But anyway, he's gonna drink something in order to take away his powers, so that it will be a fair fight. And the other tribes, because of the fact that there are 5, can fight for the glory of becoming king. And all the tribes respect T'Challa, so they say no. Except for one who was not really invited, but still exists. And that is M'Baku, the great character that actually becomes great more towards the end of the movie. But because of the fact that I already knew that, I liked him from the start. But he challenges T'Challa, and T'Challa accepts. And even though M'Baku puts up a good fight, T'Challa wins. Also, just a little thing. This is not an insult or anything, but why does one of those guys have like a dinner plate in his bottom lip? Like that must be super uncomfortable, but whatever. Thought I'd make note of that. At least it's not that stupid than those like ear things that people wear. You know, where they basically, you know how you can have a hole in your ear in order to put like an earring in? Yeah, but some people like extend that to have like a gigantic gap in their ear. It's disgusting. Anyway, back to the movie. So now that T'Challa has won, he is now going to become king, and he is once again going to receive the power of the Black Panther. So he takes the stuff and goes to the ancestral plane and talks a little bit with his dad. Afterwards, Nakia has an idea about sharing technology and giving aid to the outside world. And T'Challa's like, that's an interesting idea. I'll think about it, that kind of situation. But then later on, they learn about Claw stealing vibranium from the museum. So T'Challa's like, I'm going after it. And he also promises Wakabi to bring Claw back because of the fact that his parents were murdered by Claw. So time to go after Claw. But before that, we need a new suit. And this is where the nanotech suits start. I think that it actually started with this movie. It actually kind of became a trend for a while. well, and I hated every second of it. It was so nice to see in Daredevil Born Again that he just had a real suit and he didn't have like some nanotech stupid thing. God, it felt refreshing. But basically, his suit is inside of his necklace. So, time to go, and everyone dresses up. Even Okoye has a wig on, so she has hair now. And they go into this club. However, they kind of need to keep on the down low and wait a bit before they can capture Claw, because also Claw's not here. Little problem though, Ross is here. Not Thunderbolt himself. No, I'm talking about Everett Ross. But he's here as well to complicate matters, and he is actually the buyer of the vibranium. So that will complicate things a lot. And because both of them want Claw, I don't really see this going well, do you? So Claw enters with his entourage of people, and he enters in such a fun way. He goes down to the guy, he pulls the vibranium from his crotch, because where is a safer place to hide it, I guess? That must have been an uncomfortable walk. I will just say that. However, Okoye gets made, so a fight ensues, and then a car chase ensues, and God, that CGI for Black Panther. Look, I get what they were going for, but it looks really weird. At least it doesn't look as bad as the end of the movie, but we'll get there when we get there. But eventually, we capture Claw and take him back to the CIA place where Ross is gonna interview him first. And that is kind of a little bit of a mistake because of the fact that Claw basically reveals, yeah, hey, Wakanda's full of vibranium stuff. I asked the king what his suit is made out of. They got a bunch of that stuff. They got tech that just would amaze even Tony Stark, which we never got a scene like that where Tony Stark is in Wakanda about the tech. Feel like a missed opportunity. Anyway, Killmonger then arrives and frees Claw. However, before they leave fully, what T'Challa notices is the fact that Killmonger is wearing a ring around his neck. And it is the same ring as that T'Challa wears, and it is only gifted to a family member. So that must be that he is the son of good old uncle. However, because of the whole freeing Claw thing, Ross was shot, so T'Challa's like, let's bring him back to Wakanda. So we bring him back to Wakanda, and while we are there, T'Challa also goes over to a guy named Zuri and asks him about what really happened with his uncle. And Zuri eventually caves and gives him the full story. And Zuri was actually there as he was the partner of his uncle without the uncle knowing it. So basically an undercover agent. And he basically told the Killing King everything. And then, you know, good old uncle died and the kid was left behind. Which that was the part that T'Challa really focused on, where it's like, why? But they left the kid behind, which is the dumbest thing he could have done. So now that he knows the truth, T'Challa needs to learn how to deal with that. So I guess he goes with Nakia and has a bit of a talk with her. Meanwhile, Killmonger kills Claw and brings him back to Wakanda and is let in by Wakabi because of, you know, the weakness for Claw. He can't help but let him in, and also the fact that he has the tattoo behind his bottom lip. So then we have Killmonger, who takes over basically, I guess, the main villain role of the movie, and he wants the throne, because of course he does. He wants the throne so that he can arm black people to fight back against white people and Asians and all the others. Basically, he wants black superiority, which that is a problem. Any singular race that wants superiority is a problem. And if you can't see that that is a problem, you are part of the problem. I'm just saying, okay? Yes, there is injustice happening right now to black people, but reversing that and putting the injustice on white people and the rest of the world is not the solution. T'Challa will know the solution by the end of the movie, and I love him for it, but that's not the solution. However, initially everyone laughs at him. However, then when he reveals that he is actually royalty, T'Challa accepts his fight. So now they both get, you know, just weapons, no special powers. Time to fight. And yeah, he wins. Killmonger wins. What did you expect? I mean, we are at the moment of the movie that something like that is supposed to happen. So he wins. However, he doesn't kill T'Challa. He kills Zuri because of the fact that he learned that Zuri was the one who actually got the father killed. However, what he does to T'Challa is he throws him off the waterfall. And then we have Shuri, the queen, and also Nakia who run for it. And sadly enough, Okoye will not join because she is duty bound to the throne. Whoever sits upon the throne, she must obey. However, there's a little bit of a loophole that she will use later on, but we'll get back to that later on. Don't worry about it. Keep that in the back of your mind. So Nakia picks up Ross and they leave with the family. However, Nakia goes back in order to grab one of the Black Panther herbs. Meanwhile, Killmonger goes to the ancestral plane, meets up with his dad, and is happy about what he is about to do. However, he sees all of the plans for Black Panther, and the woman is like, these are for future kings. Like, there's no future king. There's only me, okay? Burn it. And he burns everything. So it's a good thing that Nakia decided to go back for the herb. Very good. So they burn all the herbs, which in this movie makes sense, but what happens in the second movie, it's like, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. Because while, yes, T'Challa is going to be, at the end of the movie, the last Black Panther, with the death of Chadwick Boseman and the refusal to recast, it did complicate things with the next movie. So now Killmonger wants to arm the spies that Wakanda has across the world in order to overthrow governments and basically put black people in power and, I don't know, either kill white people, put them in cages, makes them slaves, or I don't think there's another option. But if there was, he would have done anything bad. And potentially also he would go to Japan and do the same thing there as well. But I don't know if that is specifically true. But he will basically take over the world in that sense. He will become, as T'Challa says later on in the movie, just as bad as the colonizers beforehand. So now the ladies need a plan. And the plan is to go to M'Baku to ask him for help and give him the herb, because of the fact that even though either one of those three ladies can take it, the problem is M'Baku is the only one with an army, and even a solo Black Panther can go through that. So they go to M'Baku and ask him for help, and after a little bit of fun with M'Baku, he's like, come with me. And he takes them because apparently one of the fishermen was fishing and found, I guess, fished up a king. What a catch. But yeah, they found T'Challa. However, there is no way to heal him, because if you take him out of the ice, he will die instantly, basically. Or at least he will die a couple of seconds later. So the queen instead is like, hey, give me the herb. Let's pour it down his throat. He'll go into, and then bury him, because apparently that's part of the ritual. Let's bury him. And he goes into the ancestral plane where he yells at his past kings. He's like, you were all wrong. And I love that. I love the way he's just like, you were all wrong. That is like really, really good acting from Chadwick Boseman. And then he wakes up and he asks M'Baku for help. And obviously, because of tension, M'Baku says no. So T'Challa goes back alone. And while Killmonger is loading up the ships, one flies away but gets shot down. And Black Panther emerges and he's like, I never yielded. So the challenge is technically still on. And that is the loophole that I was talking about, because yes, that is true. He never yielded and he's alive, which means that the challenge is still on, which means that Okoye and the ladies don't have to obey the king, because he's not the new king. However, sadly enough, W'Kabi does obey him and attacks the Black Panther, and he's also the guy with the war rhinos. But Okoye and the ladies, they fight against W'Kabi and the men. Meanwhile, there are some ships who were able to make it away from the battlefield. So with some very good stealth, I will say, Nakia, Shuri, and Ross, they sneak in, and Ross gets put on a plane with this really cool tech, which, by the way that everyone here lives, that's how I always envisioned, like the, I know this is completely separate from Black Panther, but that's how I always envisioned the Isu in Assassin's Creed to live. Just wanted to say that, just wanted to mention that, kind of throw that out there. But anyway, he gets put on a ship in order to be able to shoot down some people, because of the fact that we cannot let that tech leave, which even later on, there's a ship ready to kill him, basically, just trying to shoot down the glass. By the way, Trevor Noah voices the AI in that one. Anyway, it was shooting down the glass, and he's like, no, I'm gonna stay here. That will not leave Wakanda. And it's like, yeah, that's my boy. Meanwhile, Shuri gets some, like, arm cannons, and Nakia gets one of those, like, Okoye suits. Let's call it that. Okoye suits, because I forgot what they were called. But she gets one of those, and they go into battle as well. And yeah, they're doing overall pretty well. However, Killmonger cannot be beaten until T'Challa jumps down with him to the train area, where he tells Shuri to turn on the train, which causes the suits to go away because of the fact that those things stop vibranium from working, because that's the only way to transport vibranium. So we have a fight that looks awful. Like, this is what I mean in the review. This is the fight that I mean when I said CW fighting. Like, it's literally from the Flash TV series. Like, I'm being serious right now. It is like from the Flash TV series. It's just like, what do you... this movie cost how much? Why didn't you fix this? Oh, right, because Marvel was doing a bit too much during this time. And they also did not plan ahead like they should have. Mainly, like, with the suits. They probably didn't even know what these suits were gonna look like until, like, close to release. So then they animated all this stuff T'Challa with the suit, and that's why it probably looks so horrible. Anyway, it looks horrible, but overall, the fighting goes actually pretty well. And also, surprise, surprise, M'Baku actually joins after all. He shows up for the dramatic entrance and fights alongside the Royal Guard, I guess we could call the ladies. The Royal Guard. And they win. And also, T'Challa, thanks to a pretty cool move, I will say that, is able to stop Killmonger by stabbing him in the chest. And then Killmonger's like, you know, my dad was actually gonna show me the sights. He was gonna show me the beautiful view of Wakanda. Can you believe that? And then T'Challa picks him up and takes him to the beautiful view. And he's like, you know, we can heal you. And it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna be in chains. Just bury me in the ocean like my ancestors, alright? He takes the spear out and dies. And from that point, T'Challa knows what he needs to do. He's gonna share it with the world, but he is actually gonna do what Nakia said earlier in the movie about the fact refugees. He buys up an entire street in order to renovate it, in order to help people. He is using his power to help, not to cause another war, not to overthrow governments. He's using his powers to help, and that's how you move forward. That is exactly how you move forward, and that is why I respect Black Panther and will always respect T'Challa, because of the fact that unlike that Captain America that we have now with his horrible speeches, I will say that they are actually garbage speeches, by the way. Like, you gotta do better versus what T'Challa does in this movie. Look at the difference. T'Challa, you are a king. And also, in the post-credits scene, we see that Bucky is still in Wakanda. And, yeah, I guess he's just healing from what happened before. But he's still in Wakanda. He's been unthawed as well. So that's nice. And also, apparently, he is now known as White Wolf. Which, okay, sure. Why not? Black Panther, White Wolf. Why not? I mean, unlike Black Panther, Bucky actually doesn't really look like a wolf. But hey, we'll go with it. And that's the end of the movie. I think I've covered about everything. And overall, yeah, I like the movie. I also like the fact that the movie doesn't go in the direction that would nowadays be more predictable to go, where it would support the genocide of potential people across the world in order for black people to be supreme. In that sense, it doesn't go that route. It actually shows the fact that no, both of them are bad, okay? The colonization of black people and the slavery was horrible, which it was, 100% agree. But like, if you do that to, like, if you reverse that and do it to white people or stuff like that, you are just as bad as them. Simple as that, you know? It's like, we need to move forward, not look back at the past, but move forward. And that is basically the message that this movie gives. And I fully agree. I think it is very sad about all the injustice that's happening towards black people in the world. And I don't have the power to change it. God, I wish I could, but I can't, sadly enough. But maybe one day the world will change. But this movie does give us the good message. And I like that. If I want to call a terrorist, I'm gonna call a terrorist. Simple as that, okay? Don't you tell me that I'm wrong when she blows up like a hospital, okay? She's a terrorist. Simple as that. Don't you speak anymore. I will never forgive Sam for doing that, by the way. Being like, don't call her a terrorist. She is. That's for a different day. We'll get to that day eventually. Not yet, but eventually. But overall, like I said, I very much enjoyed the movie and the message that it is trying to send. End racism and move forward. And that is a good message in my book. And I loved a lot of the stuff about this movie. And it's basically just the CGI characters that just kind of drag the movie down a bit. And while the movie's messaging may not have been perfect, certain things were handled a little bit too fast. Overall, I think it did a really good job. And I will stick with my low 9 out of 10. So, let me know what you guys thought about this movie in the comment section down below. Go spoiler filled. I don't care. This is the spoiler talk after all. So, let me know everything. And thank you all so very much for watching. And I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if you're not already. Turn notifications. Don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel. Link in the description and at the end of the video. And I'll see you guys next week because I got a lot of work ahead of me because we got Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3. Bye!